Hi everyone, welcome to my channel, Math Made Easy with Terry in 10 minutes. Okay, so we're going to be talking about method of solving quadratic equations. If you've not liked or subscribed, don't forget to do so. If you like any video, don't forget to do so. And as well, turn on the notification bell so when I post new videos, you'll be the first person to know. Now, we'll talk about how do we then solve this quadratic equation. So basically, a quadratic equation with either a real or a complex coefficient usually has two solutions. And like I said in the previous video, these solutions are called roots. Is that okay? So they usually may be distinct or they may be real or there'll be no solution, but it depends on the nature and discriminant. So I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to have a video on the nature and discriminant of quadratic equation. So I'll see you in that video. When we get there, we'll talk about that more. All right. So, and there are three basic methods of doing this. We have the formula, we have the factorization, and we have the completing the square. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to try and write down things so that for some of you that are writing, taking notes so that you can have a note of what I just said. So when I say a quadratic equation with a real or complex coefficient has two solutions called roots. Is that okay? So let me just write it down here. So for some of you taking notes, so a quadratic equation, all right, with real or complex coefficients, okay? So when they have both real or complex coefficient, they usually has two solutions, okay? Called roots. So like I told you in the previous video, they are called roots. Some will call it the x-intercept. Is that okay? So all are the same thing. And some can call it the zeros, all right? If it's an expression, but because it's an equation, so it's usually called the root or the x-intercept. So in some cases, you could hear things like the x-intercept, but it's basically the same thing because I'm going to talk about this when I get to the point of sketching. So when they say the x-intercepts, we're basically referring to the roots, okay? So and like I said, these two solutions could be either distinct or may not be real. Is that okay? So these two solutions may or may not be real. So in some cases, I'm going to talk about that when we talk about nature and discriminants, and they may or may not be distinct. So that means they may or may not be real, they may or may not be distinct. So I'll talk about this in the subsequent videos. We're going to talk about this later. But what I'm interested in today are just the three types of main method of doing that. So the three types or the three main methods of solving, okay? So we have the quadratic formula. So we have the quadratic formula. And the formula, we'll talk about it soon, is minus b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. We're going to talk about that. Number two, I'm going to talk about the factorization method. I'm going to talk about four types here. So we're going to talk about factorization method here. So I will talk about how do we use the difference of two squares, how do we talk about the common factor, we talk about when a is equal to 1, when a is not equal to 1. And number three, I'm going to talk about the completing the square method, okay? So we're going to talk about completing the square method. All right? So the completing the square method is always in the form of ax plus p squared plus q. You see it in this format usually, okay? And we'll talk about the factorization. There are four types here, all right? Or four ways. Let me put four ways to factorize. So let me put four ways. So we have four ways of factorizing. talk about 4 ways. So I'll talk about things like the common factors, the difference of two squares, trinomial when a is equal to 1, trinomials when a is not equal to 1. I'll talk about each of them. And what I can also say is it's very important for you to solve extra questions after each video, because the next video now I'm going to talk about quadratic formula, and I'm going to talk about how to solve quadratic formula. Okay, so how to use the quadratic formula to solve questions. But the most important thing is that you have to solve more questions for you to be very good at this. Okay, so and I also talk about the factorization method, and I also tell you that out of the 3 of them, factorization method is usually limited. In some cases, you can get solutions. Is that okay? So, but the best method is the completing the square method. It is the longest method, but it's the best method. It can solve all types of quadratic equation. The formula method is also limited as well when you have no solutions. Okay, we'll talk about that very soon. So the best method that you need to keep in mind and you need to be very conversant with is the completing the square method. This is the most important method. But the other quadratic formula method, factorization method are also very quick ways of getting your answer. All right. So I'm going to see you in the next video. We're going to talk about how to use the quadratic formula, and I will discuss how do we use the quadratic formula to find the roots or the x-intercepts for each of the quadratic equations. And we'll now talk about how do we then apply it using different kinds of questions with positive or negative. All right. So I'm going to see you in the next video. And if you have any question, feel free to send me a message via email, or you can put it in the comment section. And also, if you've not subscribed, please don't forget to do so that when I post new videos, you'll be the first to know. All right, so I'll see you soon.